Hey guys, let's talk about Kiplyn Davis. Kiplyn was born on July 1st, 1979. She's been missing since May 2nd, 1995, from Spanish Fork, Utah. At the time of her disappearance, she was 15 years old, 5'3" and 110 pounds. She's a Caucasian female with red hair and light blue eyes. She has pierced ears and a small birthmark on the back of her neck. She has freckles and her hair is naturally curly. Kiplyn was last seen at Spanish Fork High School in her hometown of Spanish Fork, Utah on May 2, 1995. She was a sophomore at the school at the time. She attended her early driver's education class and her regular morning classes and ate lunch with her friends, but did not show up for her 4th and 5th period classes after lunch. There were possible sightings of Kiplyn in a vehicle on Main Street in Spanish Fork shortly after she was last seen in school, but these have not been confirmed. All of her personal belongings, including her purse, makeup, dental retainer, and school books, were left in her locker at school, and she never returned home for the day. Kiplyn's family resided 8 blocks from her school. She was reported missing when she failed to arrive home by 5 p.m. Kiplyn's disappearance was initially investigated as a runaway case due to her age and the fact that she had an argument with her family about school shortly before she disappeared. However, her parents say it is out of character for her to leave without warning. She was happy with her life at the time of her disappearance. She was about to get her driver's license, and her older sister was getting married. After months passed with Kiplyn's return, or any clues as to her whereabouts, police began to suspect foul play in her disappearance. Her family believes she was murdered. After her disappearance, there were rumors that her body was buried in a local canyon, but her remains were never found. 4 years after her disappearance, her family held a memorial service for Kiplyn and put up a marker in her name at the Spanish Fork City Cemetery. Numerous indictments were made in Kiplyn's case in 2005. In April, Scott Brunson was charged with perjury and lying to a federal agent. In August, Gary Von Blackmore was also charged with perjury and lying to a federal agent. In September, Timmy Brent Olson was charged with 15 counts of lying to a grand jury. In October, Christopher Neil Jepson was charged with perjury before a grand jury and making false statements to an FBI agent. In November, David Rucker Leifson was charged with perjury. Olson, Jepson, Brunson, and Leifson were all students at Spanish Fork High School when Kiplyn disappeared, but Blackmore did not attend the school and did not know her. Several of the men have criminal histories. Olson, Jepson, Brunson, and Leifson were all members of the high school's drama club, and they stated they were hanging lights in the school auditorium in preparation for an upcoming performance on the day that Kiplyn disappeared. However, a community choir performed in the auditorium during that time. The defendants said they were there, and none of the choir members saw any of them. In December 2005, Brunson struck a plea deal with prosecutors. He pleaded guilty to 6 counts of making false statements to an FBI agent and grand jury. The following January, Blackmore struck a similar plea bargain and served 13 months in prison. Olson's perjury trial was conducted in the summer of 2006. He presented no defense and was convicted on all charges. He was sentenced to 12.5 years in prison. This is a longer sentence than is recommended by federal guidelines, although much shorter than what the prosecutor requested. The judge took Kiplyn's presumed murder into account as a factor in sentencing. In September 2007, Jepson was convicted on 4 counts of perjury at a jury trial. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. In October 2007, Leifson pleaded guilty to a single count of perjury and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Blackmore pleaded guilty to 2 more counts of perjury in 2011 and was sentenced to 36 months in probation at the request of both the prosecution and the defense. He stated the court case had turned his life around and he had gotten off drugs, gotten married, and was holding down a job. Authorities believe Kiplyn was essayed and murdered, and several people who knew her or knew her associates are covering up the crime. They believe Leifson and Olson were responsible for her presumed death, and the other men manufactured an alibi for them so that they might avoid detection. After Blackmore's plea of guilty to perjury, Olson was charged with first-degree murder in connection with Kiplyn's presumed death. Jepson was charged with Kiplyn's murder in October 2007. In May 2009, a month before his trial was scheduled, He reached a plea agreement with prosecutors. He pleaded no contest to obstruction of justice, and the prosecution agreed he could no longer be charged in connection with Kiplyn's disappearance and presumed death. Jepson maintains complete innocence in Kiplyn's case and signed an affidavit saying he was not involved in her abduction and doesn't know what happened to her. In February 2011, a month before his murder trial was supposed to begin, Olson pleaded guilty to first-degree manslaughter in Kiplyn's case. He was sentenced to a term of 1 to 15 years in prison rather than the life sentence he would have gotten if he had been convicted of the murder. Through his attorney, Olson stated he witnessed another person hit Kiplyn twice in the head with a softball-sized rock. He and that person moved her body under some trees in Spanish Fork Canyon, then that night moved it elsewhere. He didn't name his accomplice, but he did say the accomplice was one of the other 3 suspects who'd already pleaded guilty to perjury. Kiplyn's father offered several times to advocate for Olson if he would reveal the whereabouts of Kiplyn's body, but Olson refused to do so, even at his sentencing. Kiplyn has never been located. Foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved. If you know anything about Kiplyn, please contact the Spanish Fork Police Department at 801-798-5070.